Good
Hi
morning.
there. Good morning.
Good morning. How are we doing this morning?
We're
Great.
doing great. How about you?
Hey, doing pretty good. Appreciate your time, and Michigan Mama News does also.
Yeah.
So we're talking about ulcerative colitis and also the narrative survey that's out. So Lori, kind of give us an idea. What is ulcerative colitis or UC?
Great. So ulcerative colitis is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease. It affects the large intestine, basically, and when the large intestine or colon is inflamed, patients experience symptoms like bloody diarrhea, urgency to use the bathroom, abdominal cramping. So it can, as you can imagine, those symptoms in and of themselves are embarrassing and can be very difficult on quality of life.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the narrative survey results and what kind of stood out, and tell us about, the emotional impact of living with UC.
Yes, great. So, the narrative kind of started out with the idea that we can't separate out emotional and physical health, and certainly in the brain and the gut are so connected. So, in the survey, and I'm sort of speaking on behalf of Pfizer here, in over 2,000 adults that were surveyed internationally, 84% reported that they felt that their ulcerative colitis was mentally exhausting. And that wasn't just because they were symptomatic. This occurred even when patients were in remission, that mental exhaustion persisted.
That's interesting.
Another thing that... Yeah, the second major takeaway, I think, was that when patients did have symptoms, there were a lot of other negative emotions like embarrassment, feeling scared, afraid to go out of their houses, hopelessness, and really strong feelings of isolation.
So then, Allison, as someone with a history of UC, how do you relate to the insights that they found from the survey?
Absolutely. The emotional well-being that Dr. Kiefer talked about really hit home for me. The emotional well-being and the emotional exhaustion were key parts of my UC and still things that I deal with today. Initially, I really found myself trying to manage the impacts of my UC on my family, my relationships, my social life, my job, and I felt very isolated and felt like I was experiencing it on my own, and it was exhausting. And until I really started to share and tell people a little bit more about what was going on with me, that was when I really started to become a bit more comfortable and have more support. I also found it difficult to explain to my healthcare providers that mental exhaustion, because my physical appearance didn't always match how I might have been feeling inside. So I had to learn to advocate for myself and my health. And it really did take me some time to learn to speak up, but that was something that was really important for me because this is truly a life-altering disease for me, and that learning to advocate for myself has allowed me to become a much more resilient person.
Great. So, doctor, what can a healthcare team do to help their patients better cope with and manage the impact of UC on social and emotional well-being, as we kind of talked about already?
Great question. So, I think the first thing is to ask. A lot of times, as Allison was saying, patients are afraid to bring up those things, to be a burden to their healthcare provider. It seems funny to sort of say, oh, I'm emotionally exhausted when they're there to see their physician. But I really think it's important that healthcare providers ask about emotional well-being at every visit. And I also think that we have to be very careful to identify patients who have just settled for their existing emotional symptoms. We don't want our patients just to survive their disease. We really want them to thrive. And so that may include sending them to building their social support network, treating their fatigue with either medication or, mental health counseling. But we really need to be proactive in managing this emotional exhaustion.
So, Allison, what advice do you have for others living with UC?
I think I would echo what Dr. Kiefer said. Do not settle. Do not let this become a new normal for you. Learn to figure out ways to manage the day-to-day impacts. for your physical and your emotional well-being, and make sure that you're taking that time to care for yourself. I think writing down a list of activities that you would like to do, if you're able to or not, and sharing those with your healthcare provider so that you have those shared treatment goals and you're talking with your healthcare provider about what you want to do and what maybe might be some barriers to getting there, so you really have that good working relationship with your doctor to be able to reach those goals. Taking a list with you is something that I'm really big on, because that time you have with your doctor may be really a short period and you may not get all your questions answered, so you want to prioritize them. And then ask, hey, we didn't get to all our questions today, so how can I follow up with you? And there are a lot of resources out there for us that, kind of help us know what questions to ask, so we don't have to really worry about that as well. And some of those are available on talkinguc.com and also on the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation website to really help us, especially when you're newly diagnosed, to figure out kind of where to start. But I would say just don't settle and make sure that you're advocating for yourself as a patient, because it really does help you become a resilient person in dealing with this lifelong journey of UC.
I do think the list to the doctor is wonderful because, yes, our time frame, our little window is very short with our providers, and to have that up front and when we get in there to remember, we don't always remember what we want to say, so I think that's great.
Exactly.
Now, you shared a few websites. Is there any other websites or more information you wanted to share before we end our interview?
I think that just the talkinguc.com and the Crohn's Colitis Foundation.org are the two that really have some great information. And then I believe the Pfizer UC narrative also is another great one that can give you some more information about the survey.
Great. So our listeners and our readers can find out more information. So appreciate your time today.
Thank
you so much for having us.
Thank you.